match. It's a beautifully simple thing. So this match here handles both the OK side, which we would simply call success, and the error side, which is failure. So we show both of them here. When we match against greeting file's result, if we have the file, right, if we get something back that's right, which is apparently in this case the file, we're just going to return the file. We have greeting file here. Notice the different names: greeting file result, greeting file result. So we're saying pull apart the result here and get to me the file. And if it's an error, what do? We panic, right? Which is something we shouldn't do. So this library is written right. It's to say, I'm going to give you back a method you can handle as an error. And then here as users, we can choose to panic. And that is also very fine too, because let's say you're writing an application, right? And your application is looking for a file called database.txt or whatever. If that file isn't there, you may not have a method in which you can recover to begin with, so you may not care about it. You may always know it to be there too. So you may just say you're going to put the panicking in that code, right? Because you're not a library, you're just the consumer, you're the application. So you can define the behavior of the application. You just don't want to define someone else's behavior when you publish a library. All right. So greeting file result, we're opening this, and when we're pulling out the file, if we have the OK branch, we're going to set greeting file to file. If we have the error branch here, we're no longer panicking. What are we doing?
Making a match based off of error kind.
That's right. We're unpacking the error, right? We're looking at error kind, and we're saying if the file is not found, right, then what I want to do is try to create it. So now I'm matching off of file create. Now what is file create here going to return?
Looks like the same thing that file open returns.
Exactly, which is called a what?
A result.
There we go. Boom, it's a result, right? So the result is either going to say, okay, the file was created, which returned the created file, or we say panic, problem creating the file. So now we've handled one level of potential failure in this. We're saying if I can't open hello.txt, then go ahead and try to create hello.txt. And if I have any other error, right, that's not simply that the file's not found, then what I do is I say panic, problem opening the file. So if it's any other reason for failure other than the file not being there, that's what I do. So we try to create the file if it's not there, and if we have any other failure, we panic.
Hey, when you open a file, what's the data type? Just the path name, or?
It's going to be stdio result, I think, but we'll take a look at it, and I think it's actually going to return, in this case, the file handle, but I could be wrong on that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to just run this under rs, and I'm going to do here std file open, and then here's the open, and you can see what it's returning. It's returning a result of file, and file is defined as a reference to an open file on the system. So this is actually a file handle, right? An instance of a file can be read or written depending on what options it was opened with. So you can see here that so we can create a buff reader with it. If we open it, we do the contents by doing file read to string. This is just a file handle. That's just the point. So it's going to return a file handle. And here's your methods on the right that we can do with it. So if you want to know how to get to the contents of it, like if that's what we're getting at, how do we get to the contents after we have a file handle? We get to the contents by doing this, right? File open, foo.txt, and then we say let mute contents, string new. So we create this new thing called contents, which are mutable. And then I say file read to string, right? And you can see that method right here, read to string. So read to string takes a mutable type and then it writes to it. So the file handle, and the file handle as a thing has a method called read to string. And if I call read to string and I give it a string buffer that's mutable, it'll write the contents to that string buffer.
Okay.
And there's a bunch of other ways you can read to and write from a file. You know, that's just probably one of the simpler ones. All right. Alternatives using match with result TE. So we know that file open is going to be returning a result, and here we're calling unwrap or else, right? So unwrap or else is going to say this is essentially going to if there is,
Is that good for if there's only one success case?
no, unwrap or else is, so unwrapping generally means you're looking for the value inside. I think unwrap or else, what this is doing here is it's saying set greetings file equal to this if it worked. If it didn't work, then run this code,
Gotcha.
right? So it's saying, it's another way of writing it, right?
Gotcha.
Unwrap or else, here's what we'll say. This is a good way of saying it. There is a method of writing code which has a match statement. We call that form of programming iterative or procedural, right?
Mhm.
It's like Python, right? There's another method of writing code which is functional, and it uses things called combinators. And this is showing you a different method of writing code with a functional method. So now I'm getting this result back, and I can actually call the function on it called unwrap or else. That is either going to return the piece out, or it's going to call the closure you give it, that piece of code.
Gotcha.
Okay. Shortcuts for panic on error, unwrap and expect. So now we're getting back down to this whole unwrap and expect thing. We covered this way earlier on, and I said that we don't suggest using either one of these, right? Unwrap is essentially going to say, if I have an error, panic. It's going to elevate an error you can handle to a panic, which just dies. And the other one that we have is expect, and it's going to do the same thing as unwrap, but it's going to print out a message, right? So notice unwrap here takes no arguments, but the one up here, unwrap or else, does take an argument, which is a closure. So this one takes a piece of code, and rather than panicking, it calls that piece of code. So this thing here is actually a closure. That's a function in Rust.
So sorry, the syntax here we have like the lines with error in between it.
Right.
That is
The
like a
first
variable
argument-
being passed.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the first argument of the closure,
Okay.
right? So that's taking a closure, a function, and it's saying the function is requiring one argument called error.
Okay.
And it's going to run this code inside of it.
Gotcha.
And that's also very common to see that in Rust.
Yeah, I've seen it. I just didn't really fully understand.
I
it.
tend
And
to
some of the
use-
Discord stuff I was doing.
I tend to prefer unwrap or else to match. Different people, some people prefer match to, it's just a style thing.
Gotcha.
You know. Use stdfs file. So we have this thing here. We're saying greeting file equals file open, hello.txt. Expect hello.txt should be included in this project. So this is essentially saying, I know I'm going to include this file in this project, but because I'm getting a result back and I have to handle it, I'm going to send you the error. And what am I going to put in that error? I'm going to put in that error words that clearly tell people what my assumption is. My assumption is you're running this file from a project, and that the project also includes hello.txt. So you get to tell people what you expect. And if the program violates that expectation, you get the error. Propagating errors. So propagating errors is basically the ability to send the error back to the user. So here we have a function called read username from file, and it takes a result, a string, it takes nothing rather, and it returns a result of a string or an IO error, right? So this is the error side, IO error, and this is the string side. Now we can find out what IO error is when we do this. Look it up in the docs, right? std IO error. And it tells you here the different methods you have. It tells you what you can do with it. This is how we got to kind earlier, right? So we have this result, and it can have one of these two things. Now, here's the thing about it. Because IO error is being returned from these file open operations, right? std IO error, this thing here, std IO error, right here. This is being returned from the file operations of the standard library. This function, read username from file, can just give it back, right? One of the options you have when you call something that has a result is to handle the error case. But if you're returning a result, you can just give it back the error. If your error that you're returning is the same thing as the error you're receiving, you can just give it right back. Now, very frequently it's not the same, and it shouldn't be the same. When you're writing your own library, you should always create your own error type, which can include anything, right? Then you need to map it. You need to say, okay, I got an IO error from this. I'm going to return it back and say there was a problem opening this file. That's going to be the error I give to my users, not the IO error.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're going to return the IO error, if that's what you're returning, you can just give it right back. So there's two different ways of doing it. Creating your own error type and just simply returning the error type you were given. And they're both options. Alright, so all of this would be a tremendous pain in the ass in any language, and it would not be successful if it wasn't for the fact that Rust makes this stuff easier than a lot of languages. And how does it do that? One of the things that it does is it provides us this question mark. And this question mark does a lot of really great magic, right? So the question mark is actually saying here, file open is going to return a result. Right? That's what this is going to return. You can only provide the question mark at the end of something that returns a result. Right? If I get back an error, and if I can get that error that I got back to the same type of error that I'm returning, then just simply return that error. Otherwise, reduce it to the OK variant and give me that instead. So let mute username file always gives you back the file. Because if there's an error, what this actually does is it expands, because it's a macro, right? It expands to simply returning an IO error. Right? So let me show you how this actually works. This code here this magical piece of code right here, right, is actually the same thing as this. The very same thing. This top piece that has the question mark is equivalent to this right here. The one with the question mark is essentially just going to expand to a match statement. If it's okay, it's going to unwrap it, get the T out, whatever the result is, and give that to you, which in this case is your name file. If it's an error, then whatever the error is, you're going to return the error. So, putting two and two together. What kind of functions can a question mark be used in? Nope.
Some of them?
Anything that returns a result?
Why?
Why? So, because it needs to be able to return an error?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So a function that doesn't return an error can't make use of a question mark, right? Because the question mark is going to expand to this very code right here. It's not any more complex. It's going to say return the error. If the function itself isn't typed to return an error, a result up here, right, with an IO error, if it's not typed to do that, then the question mark won't work. It'll say, warning, can't return an error here. So then it's not type safe, right?
Yeah.
So you can only use a question mark on a result and only in a function that itself returns a result. That's your rule of thumb. But that does two things, right? What it really does, actually think about it like this, it does one really big thing. And that is that it unifies the whole entire Rust language into using results everywhere. Because that one piece of syntactic sugar means you want to always return a result, and everyone wants to give you a result. That's what makes it all happen. If you come from JavaScript, you see the same thing with .await, right? Async and await. Because you want to be able to await something, you have to write an asynchronous function. And what ends up happening is, when we release that functionality, everything started to become an async function. Everything started to use await.
Everything returns a promise.
Because everyone wanted to write in the same paradigm. So this is the same thing, except it's with errors, which are more important. And it does the same thing too with promises, by the way. Cool. We call them teachers, most likely.
Yes, I've been using some Tokyo stuff.
There you go. All right, so recoverable errors with the result. So here's what we have here. We have this function read username from file, and it is going to return a result, which is either a string in the success case or an IO error in the error case. And what we're doing is we say let mute username file equals file open hello.txt, let mute username equals string new, and then I say username file read to string mute username. This is the same thing that we just talked about, right? I said this is how we're going to read the contents into a mutable string. And then I say okay username. So here's the question. This IO error here, right? How does that get set?
What do you mean?
The only explicit way this function can return is this line right at the bottom, right?
Well, yes.
Which returns the okay side. So how does the IO error get returned?
With the question marks.
Exactly, right? The question marks right here and right here are returning results. These things, read to string returns a result and open returns a result. And if there's an error, we just give it back to the user. So the error comes from the question marks. All of that error handling code that we get, which we know to be type safe, we can write programs that are entirely 100% guaranteed to be safe. All of that comes because we're using question marks in results. Okay, so down here we have this other one, function read username from file, and we have result string IO error. And here what we're doing is we create this mutable username, which is essentially a new string. And then I read this thing called file open, hello.txt with file open, and then I call read to string, and then I just return the username. So what we're showing here is that you can chain them, right? So you don't have to write things like this, which is a little insane, right? If you move this line above, you can just chain it. File open, question mark, dot, read to string, mute username, question mark. And then your code becomes beautifully short, and you're handling all of these error cases in a way that's safe.
Cool.
All right. So I don't know what they're trying to show here. Okay, so if you're returning a result and it's a string and an IO error, right? That is the same type as this thing right here, fs read to string, right? If I look at this right here, if I copy this and I come down here and I go rs and type it in, whatever, read to string, this is returning a result of a string. So if I come down here, this is returning a result of a string. So because this is returning a result of a string, and because this returns a result of a string, this function can simply be this function call.
Gotcha.
So we can just wrap it that simple. Where the question mark operator can be used. Okay, now we're getting to the point. Can only be used in a function that returns a result. So I jumped the gun and I already thought that. Last line of characters takes a string, returns an option character. Text lines, next, question mark, characters, last. Okay.
So if question mark hits a none there, it'll just return? Like on next?
No. Okay, so what they're trying to show here, is that lines. So this is a string, lines, next. Yes. Okay. So there was one area of complexity I danced over.
Okay.
And I want to go into that one more time. The area of complexity that I kind of skipped over, but did use the right words in describing it, was I said that you have to have a function that returns a result in order to use the question mark, right? And the question mark should be able to get the error type that it's receiving to the type you're returning. Let me give you a case in point. See this thing right here? If I go here, right, I'm going to use this as an example and just explain something to you too on that. Okay. Now, Conrad normally catches these copy-paste errors. He's good about that. Let's copy this, go over here. There we go. Okay. Okay, so this type here, I wish there was there a way to say that I want to turn this off? Rust. No, I don't actually remember how to turn that off. Something I'll look at for the next class, because then you don't see all the red stuff, and it's a little less confusing. But, or here's what else I can do. I can just copy this. There we go. That's better. Okay, so this type here, read username from string, is said to return a result where the success is represented by a string and the error is represented by IO error. FS read to string just so happens to return the same thing. But what if it doesn't? What if I say down here, this says my error? Like this, right? Will this work?
No.
No.
Okay, so this is where the nuance comes in, right? The answer is technically maybe, right? And this is another reason why Rust is a very powerful language. Because the question mark, right, and the idea that you're returning from one type to another type can work so long as you provide the ability to get from that type to your type. So this is where the traits come in. We covered a lot of these different traits, and there's this one trait that I think it's called deref, right, or asref or something like that. And that can get called implicitly or explicitly on the thing you're returning. So if you have a mapping between your type and the other type, right, or you implement another trait called from, which says I know how to make it, right, then you can have other forms of magic happen for you. And it just reduces the amount of code. Because then you can say something like, anytime I get an IO error, no matter what the IO error is, I want to just return my super awesome error that just says an IO error has happened. Right? And you can do that very simply. Then you only have to write that code one place in the implementation of your error. You say, create my error from an IO error by returning something like this. And I'll show you how that kind of looks, right? So we could do something like this. We could say here, struct my error, right? And I could do something like IMPL from std IO error for my error. And then I would do something like this, fn from, and then I would do error, std IO error. And then what I have to do is return self. Right, so it's going to return the type here, my error, and then I would just say here self. So something like this would work. That would actually work. Because this is creating a my error type, and it's either an IO error or another error, and I'm telling you how to get from std IO error for my error by implementing this. So this is like a trait. I'm teaching my error a trick. You can create error, my error, numerous different ways. One of the ways you can create it now is by calling something like this, right? Which the whole language knows about now. My error, and then I would do from, and then I could just do something like this. And as long as error is this thing right here, it'll all just work.
Nice.
So that's the catch, right? The catch is that the question mark means you have to represent the error state the same way, or the two ways have to be mapped to each other, right?
Gotcha.
And in this case here, right, the none works just fine with that, right? So they were showing you, where is it? Right here, option. So last character of first line, next is going to return an option, and the error state here is an option. So if next returns none, what happens to question mark? It's going to return none. Otherwise, it's going to return the last character. Cool. All right. Now we have this one here. This is showing you the other technically catch. We spoke about this earlier today, and I said that there's a slight catch. Take care, my friend.
Sorry, I got a phone call.
Totally okay. We said that you have the mechanism here, right, of returning or having a type of a different size, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we represent this in Rust. A box of a din error can be different things that implement that trait that are different size. So that's how that would actually be. So this is the format where you can have different size things represented. And we call that a trait object. And the disadvantage to this is that you lose the ability to do anything except what that trait is. So this is essentially saying main is going to return something that implements this trait error. And then the only thing we can do is what that trait returns for error. That's the only thing you know, that it has that implementation. All right. And then the last chapter.
Is it panic or not panic?
Yep. So we're going down here. What they're showing you here is when you have more information on the compiler, it's okay to panic, right? And what they mean by that is, in this case, you know this is a valid IP. The compiler doesn't know. So we know that conversion is going to work, and it's always going to work. So we can write that in there like this, because you're wasting time. We know it's going to work. Now, if you don't know it's going to work, write your own errors, and here's where we're going to go into like writing our own errors, creating custom types for validation. So here we implement a public struct called guess. We give it a value, which is an I32. That must represent whatever we guessed. If the value is less than 1, or the value is greater than 100, we panic. And then we return the guess struct with a value. And then the guess struct implements a method called value, which returns whatever it contains. Right? So this guess struct is wrapping an I32. It's all it's doing. There's nothing different between that and an I32, but the type system sees it as a new type. We call that the new type pattern. It's wrapping another type and nothing else. Right? So you could just say guess is an I32, but if you did that, you wouldn't be able to implement value on it or new. So that's what we're adding to the equation by doing that. Okay, and they don't go too much into that, but my error example is actually much more apropos, because we're actually showing you this is like an actual, how you can do errors, right? And you can even do like, to be more correct, you may do something like this, right? And then you can just represent the errors with a string. Couldn't access this file. All right, so this is a pretty short chapter, and I think I went over all the code in the book and explained all what the code does. This is essentially just because it's a short chapter because we've already covered enums, right? This is just simply showing you how this one piece of technology, which you already know how to use, is able to model all of the error states in Rust very effectively. Right?
Sweet.
Cool. Any other questions? How's the Discord bot coming?
Slow. I've been, so I was using Mongo for a little bit, but then I decided I wanted to use SQL, and I've been messing around with different like ways of doing that, and it's taken up a lot of time. I was using like Diesel, and then I figured out it doesn't work well with async stuff.
Diesel should work pretty well with basic stuff.
Should it? Okay, I was hearing a lot of...
SQLX is the preferred one.
Yeah, so then I found SQLX, and then something that's built on SQLX, which is called SEA-ORM.
I've never heard of that.
So I'm kind of checking both of those out right now.
Cool. Be interested in hearing about it. I've never heard of C1.
Yeah, I'm
And you were finishing up your class stuff.
yeah. I also have some dealing with college stuff. So.
Cool.
Where you going to school?
Western Governors University. It's like fully online.
Oh, okay.
But the Rust class is the real value right there. He's
Absolutely.
gonna be getting a job with Rust right out of his WGU class.
Let's go.
To say, what can you do? I know Rust. Done.
Oh,
Okay, if you're paying,
is the class over?
Class is over.
Oh,
and after a round,
Playing
I might
chess.
be going, because honestly, I'm not the implement. You know what I mean?
Let's see if my patch got accepted here.
I get rejected by Dallas people of Dallas.
Not yet, no. Lead chess. Okay. Send me over. You want me to send it to you?
I'll send you one, man. Don't worry, I won't get you 2 days.
He's too slow at everything. Let me send it.
Correspondence, no, I want real time, 1 minute chess.
You know, my
I'll play your
computer
game.
was like
I
exactly
won't
where
like
it
it,
was
but I'll
last
play your
time I
game.
worked on it. Like I haven't used this one.
I just sent you a thing.
Everything's still running.
You told me this.
Exactly.
That's hilarious.
Go.
Lame, bro.
You're lame, bro. Look at that. I just gave you some time.
You did.
Because I'm
Alright.
so
Oh, that's my
So
mistake.
I'll
You didn't catch it.
see if I can figure out where to get
Good
started.
job,
Yeah,
Smarty.
The S code is already up,
Man, you're so fast.
I'm so
crazy,
good,
bro.
and
That's how you've
everything.
been working hard.
I'm actually crazy.
Alright.
It's not my game.
The S code is up. What else do I need to know about? Browser was doing something. I'll leave that. Oh, it was the terminal that was showing all that.
True, but false.
Terminal was showing some stuff. So where did we leave off?
Looks like we're on functions 2.rs, which is the current file open in VS Code.
Whoa, insane move.
Yeah, that was a dope
So
one.
we haven't touched
That
this
was
yet.
stinky.
So I'm not done. Okay.
That was stinky.
And it's also
I don't know what to
compiling.
do.
So why isn't it compiling?
So shall I look at here?
Personally, I would never have that.
Expected type. Some kind of type problem. Let's see.
Never me.
Type. Oh, expected type and then line 10.
What? Oh, okay, I didn't notice that.
Expected
That's a my bad.
So it doesn't know what type num is supposed to be when you're passing it into the function.
Yeah.
So you need to annotate it.
Something like
It's like crazy now.
that.
I think that would be good. Why don't you give that a save?
I just took a while again.
Good guess.
I'm
So
losing
what would the
time.
expected behavior be if you passed in 7
Destroyed him.
instead of 3?
2 seconds away
No, I didn't even read the code
to a draw.
at all.
That's
Um,
lame. That's crazy.
Let's see, function.
You want to play
Let's see,
another one?
follow the function here. Okay.
I'll give you a rematch. I'll give you a rematch, but I want one more thing to be acknowledged. before
That
we
was
do a rematch.
close.
I guess as close as 27 points up can be, but that I'm playing black.
Yes. But
Alright.
you also play more bullet chess than me. You have like 300 games.
No, I play
Together.
more chess than you.
Okay.
Well, yeah, you can play more chess than me online.
Why don't we start?
Well, there's
at
only
the
one
entry
type of
point?
chess, right?
Okay.
Bullet chess,
Call.
online, I'm
Yep.
the chess.
So,
Anything else
no
is
You
parameters.
see, you see this
So
man
names
like
the entry point of any program.
close-minded
Or of every program.
to chess.
So it's hard
I can't believe
coded
that
break.
exists.
Is the
Playing,
parameter to call me.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
So I guess num
I
becomes
would never
3.
take that personally.
Yeah.
My bad.
And then what do we have?
A for loop.
Okay.
But I don't
I can't
understand the
think.
structure of
That's
it.
crazy.
For I.
So.
I usually always.
How do you read that?
Surprise.
So for I, and then I believe it's called the range. Let me double check what the 2 dots are called against the range operator.
I should have done that, but I did.
So yeah, basically dot dot means like you're going a range. You know, it's just like a range expression. So
So starting from 0 to 3, so that's 4. Just gonna cycle 4 times.
I can't even
3
do
times.
that.
It's not
That's
inclusive.
crazy.
Okay.
I believe. Let's see. There's a way to make dot dot equals would be inclusive. So try and put an equals at the end of the dot.
That's crazy.
And save this so it runs. And we can look at the output on the left. Right now it says number 1, number 2, number 3.
Mm-hmm. See that?
And when it recompiles at some point. There it is. Now we have 4 because it's inclusive. So it's running 0, 1, 2, and 3. And we're adding 1 to whatever number right there to
I
make
don't know
it
what to do.
not 0 index, right?
That's crazy. That's fair. Do you want to play a longer game?
3 times.
See, you won't play me the longer game because you know I win. Because you know I'll win. Because you know I'll win. At least I play you in easy these
No.
games which I lose because I have an honor.
0, 1, 2,
But you won't play me in a longer
0,
game
1,
because
2.
you know you'll lose. Because you know you'll lose. You can't even deny it. Don't deny it, bro. Don't deny it, bro. Don't deny it. You fish in,
0, 1,
bro,
2,
you
right,
fish in a
that's what I
small
meant,
pond. There's little water. There's a lot of fish. But in the real game, you fish in a big pond with little fish
Alright, I
and
think we're good
lots
with
of
this
water. So it's very
take
hard,
the
much
option,
harder
what
to
to do.
fish. And I fish in the big
these
pond. You
days,
fish in the little pond. You know what I'm saying?
Them, so if
I think you should start fishing in the big.
I don't
You should start fishing the big pond where there's a lot of time to actually think over your moves. I'm just saying. Alright, personally. That's me though.
I like fish that are young, quick, and healthy, not old. And
But no, they
Where
provide
do you
less
read
meat
it?
though.
Where we
Like,
are?
what are you thinking? You let it ripen and mature, and then you harvest it. All right.
Which one
You-
are we on?
if it's too young, it doesn't taste good, or
we're
there's
gonna-
not enough
yeah,
meat.
got it from
It's
there.
that's
Check my
not
email.
worth it. That's what I'm saying. It's not worth it.
Some big programming stuff.
You look for
Some
micro
big
like
programming.
consumption of
Programming.
enjoyment.
I'm working
but
on
you really enjoy a
right
lot
here.
of food.
BBOS.
That is great
or
full
maybe
chest,
as
but
well.
Oh, we're down to the.
I told
But you know what?
I
Daniel
only
about
do
that.
it for
Oh,
the
yeah?
flip out.
Yeah.
you're fucking right.
He thought it'd be hilarious. It's gonna be a thing.
Alright, say it better.
It's gonna be the latest and
Alright,
greatest.
so-
It might be humorous, but it's right.
Best operating
That's what
system.
makes it
No,
I mean, what did I tell you when we
Alright,
started
that
doing
is what I
chess? What did I tell you?
So if something happens.
What? I mean, this
I
is
told
a
you
chess
to
though. This is a chess.
I
This
told
is
you
a chess
I told
though.
you
This is a
exactly
chess
how
though.
it would work. I
This
said
is a chess though.
I said you're
This
gonna
is
come
not
in here,
chess.
you're gonna kick my ass for a couple of months,
Oh,
and
this
then
is a chess
and then we may draw a little bit.
Something needs to be
We
And
never
then I'm
draw
gonna
though.
edge you out,
Need
and it
32?
ain't ever switching again.
It's gonna switch.
It ain't
Alright,
ever
it's switching.
switching
It's switching.
again.
All right, let's play one more
What is
game.
what is
I
the
think
subject of this
I'm gonna draw this
error
one out. I'm gonna draw this one out.
an argument?
I'm trying to dabble into
One more,
Python
and I'm
stuff
There
though.
we go.
Like,
We just played- we could do
Really?
30 seconds and do 2 of them. You want to do that?
No, it's just
My
do
roommate's
one.
a
Or
Python
just
developer.
All right,
so
that
he
means
got
it's
me
Right,
to
right.
crazy. It's too much.
All right.
You met my roommate. We went to the party.
Who is it?
John.
John, yeah, I met John. My roommate. He's a data
Again, I did
scientist.
it. That's crazy.
Did he get home okay after the party?
He did.
I think he slept in y'all's like
Bathroom.
bathroom for
Yeah,
like 4 or 5
yeah.
hours.
That water that he didn't.
I-
That water. Me and Daniel like went to the restroom in the
I
morning,
got something
and
to
Sorry.
do
Where do you
It was not
argue?
like
Inside these
drink at all.
parentheses or after?
But like,
Oh, the cup
I'll let
water?
you
yeah, the cup
guess.
of water.
What makes more sense to
Poor
you?
guy.
I'm pretty sure he fell asleep in the restroom.
4D way would be there'd
I
be no
think he
parentheses just
Ubered
together
home.
by themselves.
He did.
Never.
Yeah.
Well, what is if you were to call a function with no arguments, like if it doesn't take any parameters, how would you call it?
Like
this.
that.
So if you wanted to one that
So,
provided one
I guess
parameter,
space.
no, it's within.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
can't take it. Can't take it. Can't take it.
So usually function
Can't-
arguments
bro,
are
you can't handle these,
separated
don't play
like
the
lists
game, bro.
inside the
Nah, that's
functions.
simple.
Oh, wait,
parentheses.
I'm not speaking correctly. I should be focusing on the game.
Anything that's a U32?
Okay, so.
What should I do? Not that. I'm gonna do that.
What you do, buddy?
Handle the heat. Don't
Checking
play
my
the game.
email.
Nice, nice.
Didn't agree with that. Yeesh. True. Yet false. Draw it out? No. I'm not
So we're on what functions for now?
Yeah, it's function that's like buried.
Yeah, I don't know why it does that. Mine doesn't. Must be a Mac.
What did I say? It's flipping around, baby! It's flipping around, baby! What did I say? What did I say? It's good to be on top again!
I can't let you get a rematch. I gotta go to Costco.
That's okay. I'll give it to him.
I got
Good job. So it hasn't totally flipped around yet.
I'm gonna have all these
You still do have a snowball's chance in hell.
I
And I haven't taken that away from you.
I might have a snowball's chance in hell, but hell's freezing over tonight.
Yeah.
Also,
Well done. Well done.
Also,
I made you earn it, but you earned it. That's how it works.
Also, I never got to
Take
say
care,
this,
my
but
friend.
I
Good
did find
job
good
on
jokes, but I just thought of a really good name for you.
I'll take back the shit.
Your band Evanescence.
Huh?
That's a pretty good one. I do believe.
Evan's Essence?
Evanescence,
Oh,
yeah.
it's
It's hilarious. Alright, see you guys later.
See you, man. You have a good week.
Have a good one, guys.
See you next week.